Good evening. Have you ever met a person, and by meeting that person, the course of your life was changed forever? Kim Whitby is one of those people in my life. We met one day when we were both volunteering in the nursery at church. We had heard of each other, but we hadn't met yet. She was the seasoned foster mother I had heard so much about. I was the young mother her daughter had met months before. As we sat in the floor talking that day, getting to know each other, she sat with a foster baby in her lap and answered my innumerable questions about foster care. My life has changed drastically from that day. My husband and I had a very typical family, 2 little boys and a dog. But God used Kim's contagious nature to open up our hearts and minds to the world of foster care and adoption. We now have 5 children, one of whom was that little boy that sat in her lap that day when we met. Thankfully, still the 2 of us, and thankfully, yes, still just 1 dog. How did Kim Whitby impact my life this drastically? By teaching me that through hospitality, life is richer when we open our hearts and our homes to other people. By teaching me the importance of flexibility, because other people, especially the vulnerable, are always worth our time and attention. And by teaching me to remember what matters most, that God made us with a purpose, and our lives and our decisions should reflect that purpose. My life is unmistakably richer and fuller because of the example she has shown me. I'll explain a little more. Kim Whitby lives the idea of hospitality. She epitomizes the phrase, "Love is an open door." Her greatest joy is receiving calls from children's services asking if she can take another placement, or opening her home and hosting friends or families that are traveling from out of town. I remember one particular time when our son still lived with her. She had 3 other foster boys living with her at the time, her own 2 young sons, and her grown daughter and her family were in from out of town as well. It was a loud but happy home, because Kim always views her home as a gift, and she cultivates joy by sharing it. Kim displays flexibility in her willingness to adapt to other people's needs. When taking in a foster placement means rearranging rooms, rearranging schedules, or homeschooling one of her sons from the waiting room of a doctor's office or the back seat of a van, she's always willing to do it. I remember this one particular time when my husband and I had offered to babysit for them. No sooner had they walked in the door and handed us their babies did her phone ring. It was Children's Services asking if they could come right now and take another placement. They did not go share dinner together that night. They went and picked up that little girl. Because her willingness to be flexible, she has taught me that loving our neighbors and the least of these, though inconvenient and uncomfortable sometimes, is always worth it. She has taught me to remember what matters most. I've watched her face innumerable challenges and discouragements in the time that I've known her, but I have also watched her hold fast to her values in the face of those challenges. When people have questioned whether they've taken on too much by being foster parents, she holds fast to her belief that this is her calling. When they've been exhausted because of the needs of the children in their care, like the time that they had 2 infants from 2 separate counties, both having multiple doctor's appointments and visitations each week, they were driving hundreds of miles a week. But the lack of sleep and the lack of normalcy was worth it, because God had called her to care for these children. And when caseworkers told her that it wasn't her place to advocate so fiercely for these children, she continued to write letters to attorneys, to have conversations with doctors, and to advocate for special needs care because she believes that these children deserved a voice. Through her focus, she has taught me to put other people's opinions into perspective and to always remember that we answer to God for how we live our lives, not others. Through her vivid examples of hospitality, flexibility, and what matters most, Kim has taught me to love more deeply and with more purpose. I hope you can see that through her example, Kim has impacted my life forever. And I think my family would agree. Thank you for listening.